Well, hello. It is Wednesday, and we are wizards and channeling in through the quantum downs. This is Dotta,
And Bear.
and we have got a great cult meeting lined up today. I cannot even believe just how prolific the cult has been this week. But I think one of the things I wanted to open up with, there is a Kurt Vonnegut letter going around. I know a bunch of folks here saw it going around, and it was this idea that a high school teacher in 2006 asked their students to write to a famous author and ask for advice. And I'm sure many of you saw this. It went viral this week, but it was a great reminder of just how uh, such a treasure that Kurt Vonnegut was. What he basically says is, you know what? He told the student that what he should just do is just create just for the sake of creating, right? And he says, what I want you to do is just write a poem about anything, uh, make it as good as you can. Don't tell anybody what you're doing. Don't show it or recite it to anybody. Just rip it up into teeny pieces, throw it in the garbage, and you'll find that you'll be rewarded for creating your poem. And I just really love that, right? He's just saying, create for your own sake. Kurt Vonnegut actually also has another super good video on his like structures of stories. Have you guys seen that? He has here. I'll even share a tweet here
I have
that I've
not
got.
seen that.
Okay, so he basically has this like 5 minute video that you should absolutely watch. I'm going to share it here in the space. That is like the structure of stories. And he basically maps out like the universal shapes of like six different stories, kind of like man in the whole, right? A man starts his day as a regular life. Everything's happy. And then like everything is taken away from him and he has to kind of climb out of it. Or boy meets girl, he falls in love, or it takes him some work and he falls in love with her. And so it's really charming 5 minutes, totally worth your time. I'm a huge fan of Kurt Vonnegut, and he's an inspiration to us all. So yeah. So today, what we're going to talk about is we've got so much community created projects this week. So I think we're going to have the folks from Cumberland Mint come up and chat about their project. We've got Brennan.Eth, who's working on a physical board game. He's already up here, so maybe we start with him. We've got MeepleDad put together the treasure merch box, and we'll have him and his team come up and talk about those. And yeah, there's just so much for us to cover today. So yeah, we can dive into it. So, well, one of the big news today is we've got Affinities on Opensea. Okay, so basically, like, this is really a long time coming. The way that I kind of like thought about Affinities originally was, just for context, if you haven't heard me talk about this before, is that with Affinities, um, really, as soon as you start creating a generator, if you make the traits completely random, then they don't fit together and they look terrible. And when we dropped wizards at the time, a lot of projects were just using completely random traits, right? You have this especially on chain projects where it's like the machine is deciding with random numbers, and we didn't want it to look random and funny. We wanted it to look good, and so the affinity is just like a measure of cohesiveness of the traits. And originally, when I did it, I felt one, it's too complicated. Two, it's a bit of secret sauce. Three, it's actually really hard to represent in OpenSea. So I was like, well, let's just release without it, and it'll be this like little gem for people to discover. And I think that it was, but like people discovered it a couple of weeks in, like pretty early on. And so, um, it, what basically happened is we've had Wizards Guide, which is really helpful. But then people kind of realize and they say, oh, they hear about Affinity and they are like, oh, you got to use this other website. It's not an OpenSea. And then people are just like, oh, this project's too complicated. I don't know what to do here. So we basically figured out a way to turn Affinity into a way that's like sensible and put it on OpenSea, which we have had in the works probably since like last October. But it's such a big change, and everyone kind of needed to be ready for it, and we just had to get it all ready. So yeah, today is the day. I think we put Affinities in OpenSea for souls, and people liked it. We put Affinities in OpenSea for warriors, and people liked it. And so yeah, it was time to kind of bring the original Wizard collection kind of up to par. So um, yeah, I think one of my favorite things to look at with Affinity is the 100% affinity here. I'm going to drop a link in Discord. I love looking at the ones, like when you look at the wizards that have 100% affinity, they just, they just sing in my mind, right? It's a lot of the traits that are really designed to go together. I think actually there was like a 5 of 5 that hit the market today, like with a wild lady head. Um, and I think like, yeah, these 5 of 5, or not 5 of 5. 5 of 5 would be like there's 5 traits and all 5 are in the affinity, right? Maybe I could actually even explain the affinity system really quickly. So the affinity itself that you see on Opensea is the tag, right? So the most popular tag being called like Crimson, and there's plenty of like 1 of 1 affinities. And then we're exposing as a trait the number of traits, right? Is this a 2 of 2, meaning is it just the body and the head? Or is it a 5 of 5, meaning it has all 5 traits, right? And then there's 2 other properties, the number of traits in the affinity and the percentage of traits, right? So the number of traits of affinity is helpful because, like, let's say it's like, oh, there's 3 traits that are in the affinity, but you need to know how many traits does this wizard have overall, and that's what the percentage of traits is. So I really love looking at the 100% traits, which just means for all of the traits that this wizard has, you can see kind of just this connection that pulls them together. And I think that like every 100% affinity wizard just looks like so good, so good. So
It's one of my the first things I look at, honestly, is the affinity. So it's so nice to be able to like have that staring you at the face in OpenSea. It's just what I think Elf talks about it as like it's art direction, right? And so because we're all about storytelling, and I mean all wizards, all warriors and souls in the collection are special, but there's something about that, like you said, that cohesiveness that just really sings when it's 100%.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Yeah. And I think that's like, yeah, I there's just so many that just look like what you think they should. And so I think, yeah, I'm not supposed to have favorites, but the 100% affinities are surely my favorites of the collection. So yeah, so maybe we could move on from affinities. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in Discord. I'm happy to talk a little bit more about it. So, but we have got Brennan.Eth up here. Hey, Brennan, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good.
What's up?
What's up?
Happy to
So,
have you.
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you.
tell us about your game. So, I'll share some links, so some pictures of what you shared, but I don't know, like we have plenty of time. I would love to hear you just kind of talk about like, well, I'd love to, for everything from your history of board games, what kind of inspired you for this one, what the production processes look like. So maybe first you could tell us about like, how did you get into designing board games?
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a software engineer by trade, and but I would make a bunch of games. I would like do a bunch of like Lundum Dare or like 48-hour game jams, um, for like most of my entire career, and like going through college and even started in high school. Just pretty much loved games. So I realized though that I would get really burnt out of like going to work, coding all day, and then coming back home and coding up games for fun. For a while it was enjoyable, and I was still playing board games, but more as like family hobby time, not really like as like a serious hobby. But then I started to think about wanting to start, building a board game. This was back in 2012. And my brother was in town. And so we spent an entire weekend just like ideation of like what could it look like. We were really big into pirates. We started working on this pirate game. And I just fell in love with the crafting of like getting your hands sort of dirty and like working with components and like trying to distill down gameplay mechanics that I could have easily coded up, but you can't really implement in a physical environment. So it gave you this like limited space to develop like really interesting concepts. And at the same time, I was really big into like, lore building, world building, and so being able to start theming different games. So pretty much since then, I've just like, that's been a huge hobby of mine of making and building games. And then more recently, in the last like couple years, I was able to find someone to sell the different game rights to distribute. We launched a Kickstarter for my first one, which is a Viking card game called Raid, a Viking card game, which is kind of like a battling, dueling deck. And 2019, right before I guess 2020, sorry, right before the pandemic. And then we're about to launch Seven Sails, which is that pirate game I started all the way back in 2012.
Cool.
But it took a long time to do a lot of refinements, but I do think it was like really craftily done. And it's to a polished state that it's like really, really fun. And then when I sold my games, I sort of took on a side responsibility of as a game consultant for people reaching out to Modern Games. So Modern Games is the company; they're based out of LA, and people would reach out and be like, "Hey, I have this game. Can I show it to you? Can you guys sell it for me?" And I would kind of come on to make sure that the game is in a good state, the game is well produced, and blah 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 blah. Right. So one of the guys that reached out, Faizan, he is out of London, and he had this really core, awesome idea. This was 3 years ago, and I fell in love with it immediately, but it needed a lot of work. So me and him started to pair up and pretty much build the game from sort of the ground up again with some of his mechanics. And his mechanics were, it's like Monopoly meets Game of Thrones. It was a little bit of diplomacy on top of Monopoly, but in a much more interesting, dynamic way. So it felt very family friendly. It was also cooperative in nature, where you felt like you weren't like Monopoly. You feel very, it's adversarial in nature immediately. Where this one, you feel like you need to cooperate, but you're still in a competitive, system. So we worked on that, and we finally finished it earlier this year. From it's one of those 99% done, but the last 1% still takes you just as long
Totally.
to finish it. So we got to the point where it was ready for theming. So all the mechanics were great. We were using his sort of world a little bit to play around in, but it was kind of lacking a lot of substance. But there was a core idea, which is you're actually building a tower. And so when I fell in love with the Forgotten Runes this year. And I don't, it's something finally clicked when he was like, "Hey, so we need to hire artists now. We're at that stage." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm looking at a bunch of artists, talking to a bunch of them." And then it just clicked. I was like, "Oh my God, I have the perfect theme." And this is when the DAO started as well. I was like, we could potentially go to, this community and repurpose the game that we've been building and fit it in, because you have the secret tower. And so we started working on different ideas. I started showing him all the artwork, and he fell in love with the pixel artwork and everything in the world and the community as well. He's never been into Web3, so he was definitely intrigued by this world. And yeah, so we started to basically apply the theme, either just by adjusting some of the rule sets to match the world and the ideas that are within Forgotten Runes and the Runeverse. But it sort of started falling in place. Got a bunch of the community members to play the Tabletopia version, which is sort of like the online version of a tabletop simulator, right? But it's free, so you don't have to pay the game or pay for the
Yeah,
for the
that's
game.
really interesting. I'd never seen that before until you shared the link for that. So it basically has you can basically take the rules of your board game and then implement it within their website.
Yeah, it's actually even cruder than that. You actually just upload the art, and they just sort of has a physics engine of how to maneuver a camera and how do you move pieces, but they don't restrict movements. You can't really codify you can only put this piece here, and then it'll automatically flip a card. It's I mean, for those who have done it and played around, the first time is very cumbersome. You feel like what was it, Quap, or where you had to figure out how to run in that game, that Flash game.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's almost literally there's a board and cards, but then you still have to know the rules to play it properly.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah.
Do they implement decks? You can put in a deck of your own artwork? How do they do that?
Yeah. So the behind the scenes, you can upload a card back and then all the front of the cards. It's a very similar process as if you were to go actually work with a print and distribution company, where you have to upload the art and validate it to make sure it fits within the parameters, and then upload it and check it out. So it's very similar process. So that it's not trivial. It's pretty trivial to get your art uploaded.
Cool. That's super cool. Okay, sorry. So you said you uploaded it to Tabletop Simulator. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So we started playing because I wanted to get just an idea of feedback from a group of people who were very very involved in Forgotten Runes, to make sure I wasn't doing something that felt out of the ordinary or felt foreign to the rest of the community. And I did get some pretty good feedback. Obviously, the game is still in a polished state, and it will continue to do so all the way up until art is complete. Because most of the time you have the idea of the components, you're just shaping the mechanics between them and sort of just doing that fine tuning and balance. And so I got to the stage where we were doing less and less balance changes or polish changes to the rules, to enough where I felt comfortable building the prototype, the physical game. And normally I'm playing the game, maybe 6 or so times a week just to keep playing with different people. This game specifically is like a 1 to 8 player game. So there's a lot of edge cases you have to follow up with to make sure it scales all the way through, which is really cool to try to pull that off. But yeah, so I uploaded it, got it printed. It came a lot faster than I thought it was going to be because I'm so used to the delays from COVID. So I'm used to like waiting like months to get a physical prototype made. But yeah, so got it in. Already realized that I already have too many components. I need to start shaping some of the things down and like removing a few things. Because sometimes in the digital, you don't get a sense of that that tediousness of being able to move components. You kind of do in the game, but like it's hard to like rationalize until it's like in front of you, you're physically looking at the pieces, and then that's when you have to start to like cut things out or change things.
Right. How much did it cost to like get like a prototype, and how long did it take?
Yeah, so a prototype normally costs anywhere, and it obviously depends on all the components that are in the game. I reused a lot of components that I've gotten for other prototypes. It's sort of like a hodgepodge of the game. It like doesn't look like the end result at all, or will,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Cool. So it costs normally between $100, but then but that puts you in like the back of the line. This is using the Game Crafter, which is a website to get prototypes done in as quick as possible. Sometimes they take a really, really long time. So if you pay double, their urgency fee is literally double the cost of the game. They probably make, yeah. So I basically just double it because if you don't, sometimes I was waiting like 3 to 4 months to get a prototype in.
Right. Cool. Well, I love it. If you need more volunteers, I'd love to play around, and I'm sure there are plenty of other people here too who'd love to. So what's kind of your timeline you're thinking for when you feel like you're going to be able to get it all done, or you're just going to play it till you're ready?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we were going to go back to the DAO. And so obviously there's a pretty big cost for getting the finalized art. And I worked and reached out to a couple community members to basically do it. Usually I have kind of a cohort of artists that I work with for different games, but I felt like it was more special to bring in people who actually build in the Runeverse. And so like we have like for the lore and like getting all the copyright done, we have who's been working and writing lore for the space for a while to really nail down the story, because I think it's really important for the game. And then working with my friends and Oz and Landsit to get sort of all the 3 assets completed in the modeling. And so the cost for doing all that, we will present to the DAO, and we'll do the 20% royalty coming from the Kickstarter to pay back the original cost. And then again, 20% in perpetuity for royalty for the DAO in general. Because I feel like I'm a big DAO member as a big nouns holder in working in different DAOs. Like I really love the idea of proliferation of the brand, but also like, bringing in revenue to keep the consistency of the work that's being done in the community. So, I think this is a huge opportunity to do that, but also this sort of show Forgotten Ruins, not as a Web3 project, but just as a really cool world. I think board games can do that really well. And I have a network and backing with like Modern Games to put this out into the marketplace that can see, tons of buyers, right? That I'm not even going to pitch them like, oh, here's a Web3 turned into a board game. It's more like, this is a dope board game. Here's the novelty of it. And if they happen to find the connection, that's on them. But like, it's not something that will be like in their face.
That's interesting. I think that's important, right? Because we spend a lot of time, and me specifically, talking to people about all these different sort of media expressions and merchandising and all that. And what we found is like really what you want it to be, you want it to stand on its own. It's not, like even beyond the sort of like bipolar nature of people's reactions to Web3 and NFTs. It's like, make a board game, make a great board game. And I love like leading with that, and then, finding out later that it's a much deeper project. And also like, I'm always so, gosh, what's the word? I'm always so not impressed, but like just in awe of how much respect everybody has who's doing a project like this, to make sure that it feels organic and like native to the world and the project. I really appreciate you taking that time to like talk to people who are sort of we're all in a lot of ways like all holding the torch for Forgotten Ruins. So appreciate you like bringing in the community and getting feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things I wanted to mention is we're going to be sort of doing a casting call because there's 8 wizards, 8 warriors, 8 souls, and obviously I've already gotten permission to use the Nightmare Imp, but for Panico. But like the idea is that you could be playing with your wizard, and you should feel like when you play the game that you're living and playing in this world on your tabletop, and it feels really collectively good. But yeah, so I think it's worth taking the time for sure.
That's amazing. I love everything about it. I love everything about it.
And I'm excited. Like there's so many, I think like the idea of all these games being built, like what I love is like, I don't feel like there's ever any like competition between everything that everybody's making. Like who's to say that we shouldn't have a handful of tabletop games? Everyone's going to have a different take on what that should look like. And so it's cool to see you sort of jumping in and making this. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, the world is a really great place to build in. It's like, and it has a lot of like exploration that you can like go through and figure out what's going on. Like, I mean, I took liberties in terms of using the planetary runes as the different wizard sort of cults that they're trying to grow the power after the power vacuum, after the secret tower fell because of the Nightmare Imp, and releasing the souls upon the world. And you're cooperatively working together to not only protect the world and keep the souls out, but also retain your own power and grow your specific rune, right? Your rune strength. So like, it's kind of cool. There's just so many, it's such a malleable world as well. So yeah.
That's really fun. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, MeepleDad here. I will jump in and riff on that if that's all right.
Please.
Riff away.
What Brennan, when you posted your tweet the other day showing your prototype of your game, I was like, oh my god, this is like a whole treasure trove all in itself. But that's exactly what we've found too, is that like everyone is out there building cool, amazing stuff, whether digital or physical, and because the universe is just so ripe for it. Like there's just it just stirs that in everybody to step up and start building things. And so yeah.
Speaking of, you're building something.
That's right. That was
the transition. That was it.
That was the transition. Brennan, I'd love, feel free to tune in because like there's so much. So the treasure trove is sort of taking that idea that there's all these builders out there who have created something in this Runeverse and want to share it. But I'm hearing Brennan talk about all these challenges of production and cost and manufacturing. And as we all know, anyone who's received, merch knows that like shipping's a pain in the butt. And so I got this idea after, playing cards with people in New York City and then sitting down with Giveahoot and like sharpieing on some Pokemon energy to make his Runes TCG card game. And then, Dr. Poplovsky and I sat down to drink a beer in Montreal and played his board game. And I was like, there is so much cool stuff that is being created that just needs to be experienced by our community. And so it started as that, and then we started reaching out and sort of assembling this team of people who have physical stuff in the works that is really cool, that needs to see the light of day, but that can't do it unless we do it on scale and on mass. And it takes me to this idea of like, this is what a community really is. We can all individually create our own things, our own stuff, bring our ideas into the world. But for us to be able to come together, bundle it all, package it all up, and then share it around the globe as a team, that's the beginning of a community. And I'm just so excited to share all these cool things. So yeah, I'm not sure who's. I know some of the folks were going to come up and maybe say hi and share about their piece specifically, but it's Gamer Week. It's Gamer Week on Wizard Wednesday. I know Dr. Poplowski's board game is phenomenal because I actually got to play it. I'll start maybe with Wizard cards, or we're calling them the Forgotten Deck. And this was, I had this idea because I love games. I'm always a gamer, but I've never, I don't have the energy or the bandwidth like Brennan does to actually do all the play testing required to really polish a game. And I like quick, simple games because, I've got kids and things explode, and 15-minute games are where it's at in my mind. So I built this deck of cards that's sort of, a generic deck from the Runiverse rather than a 52-card deck from our world. In the Runiverse, we have a 7-suit deck that has all 7 wizard colors represented. And it has, instead of jacks and queens and kings, it has warriors and wizards and souls and beasts. And so that was like, our first, that was where I started with it. Artist is doing the art for that, which is so beautiful. It's so nice. So that was sort of my creation. But then, Dr. Pop, you want to tell us about spell runes?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Meeple. So spell runes, essentially, we started developing this this winter. And then we all got like super busy and kind of like stopped developing a bit around it. But then when you arrived with this superb opportunity, it kind of like forced us to get back into it and just finish the whole game. So essentially, I called it a PvP Yahtzee RPG with, of course, a Forgotten Runes theme. And I gave it also some kind of like a retro video game look as well. And it plays between 2 to 5 players. And the goal was really to make it open for all, especially people that normally don't like board games. Usually this kind of demographic are like this because they don't want to try hard and have to strategize against other diehard board game fans. So to do this, you involved a lot of luck into play, but you still want to add enough mechanics. So there's still manual decisions to make. There's just now much more gambling into it. And I mean, the NFT crowd loves gambling, so I'm sure everyone will love it. So the idea is, first thing, like every character in the game has different passive abilities. So some of them are more like offensive, some of them are more defensive, of course, some more tricky and some more like koboldy. Like they're trying hard to make friends, the kobold, right? So for them, every time, for example, he draws loot cards, he picks one more and has to give one to another player. So that's just another example. And for the mechanic is every round, everybody's going to roll their dice for initiative, a little bit like D&D, which will determine, again, the play order for that round. And then when it's your turn, you essentially roll and re-roll dice, kind of like the Yahtzee, right? So you can roll 3 times and keep the dice that you want to keep and not re-roll, essentially. And at the end of those rolls, you have a spell board. And depending on what you get, you can execute certain spells. So if you do a double, like a certain pair, for example, you can shoot fireballs. If that pair is higher, it has a higher chance of hitting the other player because the other player can also roll to try to block this. And if you roll triple, you can draw a familiar card, which has a certain power of its own, and it can help resolve ties sometimes as well. You can end up with like a small straight or a long straight or a full house or a quads, which will all do different things, such as drawing loot cards. For example, you could draw an Eternal Rose, which you can use to stop an attack from happening to you. You could draw an artifact card, such as like the Phosphorus Spear, which will add +3 to your initiative rolls at the beginning. So you have a higher chance to start first. You always have also like a character-specific spell. So, for example, the Kobold, it's called Confusion. So if you roll a full house, he can copy another player's special spell. The Chronomancer, he can do 2 damage and play again. But to make sure no players are like too overpowered, you cannot do every skill all the time. So a little bit like D&D, you have certain spell slots that you can eventually
Cool.
replenish.
I'm getting a little lost on the powers. Do you have any examples of it? Do you have any example like screenshots of the cards you could drop in Discord?
Yeah, for sure.
throw 'em
I
up
think
there.
it's linked in the tweet, basically.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I shared the tweet up here.
Yeah. So you'll have an
Yeah,
example. Of it.
everybody should go check that tweet out and dig in and find out the details.
The amazing thing about his game is that I learned to play in about 2 minutes, and we played our entire first game in about 15 while drinking a beer, having a bite to eat. It was just super easygoing and fun, fast-paced, high energy. So that's the theme of the whole box is quick, easy, fun games. And just like Brennan was saying, this is all about making sense to people who have no idea what Forgotten Runes is. So you can pick up this treasure trove and you can enjoy every single thing in it as long without having any clue what Forgotten Runes is. And I've sort of been nicknaming it like the Trojan horse, because it's going to get people's appetite just so enthused for the project in general.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much for being the epicenter of this.
So yeah, it's been so fun to bring it together, honestly. So I have good news. There is a fantastic tool in the sushi ecosystem called Miso, and we now have the crowdfunding live and ready to go. So I'm going to publish a tweet right now, and because the DAO was sort of on hiatus, and we really want to get this out and on the road for folks in time for the holidays, in time for solstice in the Runiverse, and so we really want to sort of if you want one of these treasure troves, this collection of objects from our community members, jump in and sign up to get one. It's a multi-step process where you have to sort of pledge, and then we'll take your information and stuff like that after the fundraising. But we've got 7 days of fundraising, so if you want to go check it out, I just tweeted it out. It's on the Mirror page from yesterday as well. So huge support. And we've got some fun bonuses. I know is Lorepunk up here? You want to tell real quick about what the ultimate winners get, the largest donors?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for asking. I love you guys as always. I'm really tired and my brain is cheese, so bear with me. So as sort of an incentive for the fundraising campaign, there will be gifts and prizes, custom prizes for the biggest donors, and there's going to be some prizes from me that will be custom poems about your wizards, or whatever else you want poems about. I guess so yeah, I've been really honored that Meeple asked me, and there's a bunch of other great creators, artists and lore builders who are also giving prizes. So yeah, definitely check out the fundraiser. I think this is just going to be a really amazing project.
Just real quick, I mean, you guys know, this is a Giveahoot. You guys know enough about Runes. I don't need to talk about it, but Runes is going to have 12 card decks of the beginner cards in the box. So Runes is getting in there, and it's funny when MeepleDad reached out to me about including me. I was like, oh, sure. Like, I don't know what this is really going to be about. But then once he released the blog post with like, I don't know, more than a dozen things in this box, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So huge shout out to MeepleDad for organizing all of this. I feel like this is just going to be like a really like group hug, feel good event for the cult, and just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of put everything that the cult's doing on display, and give everyone's kind of something to just like get excited about and rally about. And I don't know, it's just gonna be a lot of fun. So huge shout out to him, and making this process so easy for everyone to kind of get the products into the hands of people, like you kind of mentioned at the top. It just sounds like a great idea. So yeah.
Awesome.
Oh,
Did
and
we?
actually,
Go ahead.
sorry. So actually, while I was up here, also quick update on runes. With the funds that came from the DAO, I was able to start commissioning. Well, the funds haven't come yet, but with the promise of funds, the artists have actually started to get to work on some of the cards, and I got one of the first work in progresses for card art for the new set of runes, and oh my god, I don't know. I'm super excited. So more to come on that. But just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you everyone again for voting on the proposal. And I see the MeepleDad's back up here. So you were about to say you were about to drop some box number alpha.
Of course I cut out right when we get to the exciting part. So we need to get to that $25,000 point. Boxes start at $250 and go all the way up to $1,500. The $1,500 gets you 2 custom pieces of art, 2 and double of everything, as well as unique customized decks, and would probably land you on the leaderboard for having a custom lore piece by Lorepunk, as well as having your character on every Joker in every deck. So tons of fun. Check it all out. It's all in the post there. And don't be shy. Ask any questions if you have them. Thanks so much to all the creators who helped pull this together and make this happen. It's been so fun. So fun.
Thanks, Meeple. I think this is a good segue, actually, Dotta, to what we talking about binary.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so, man, I really love this. It's just crazy to see how much like merch and that's being created by the cult, right? So one of the things we've been talking a lot about is just how do we make this easier, right? Everything that we're doing is around like building tools to kind of grow Forgotten Runes, from everything from like little bots in Discord to generating art to creating full physical products, right? Everybody who wants to create something has the same problem, right? I remember even Magus was here, designed like a kobold stuffy just like months ago, but then sort of the operational logistics, like fundraising, all of that together ends up being quite a lot of work to actually make anything happen. And so, yeah, so we've been talking about how do we make tools to make this just way easier. And so, and on the flip side, we've also been talking quite a lot about intellectual property rights, right? And so the way that I think about what we're trying to do is, step one, create an IP that people actually care about, right? Create an IP that people want to pay for. Step two, create like a legal framework and legal templates and tools so that you actually can license the characters in your wizard to those people that want to license it. And then step three is just like building tools to actually make like execution, reporting, and just like manufacturing and commissioning things like a lot easier. So I think that's basically one of the major things that Bear and I have been talking about working on over this coming year. So the code name for the project that I'm giving it is called Binary Star. So the star part being like, you make your NFT a star, and the binary part being, being an NFT. And, the definition of a binary star is it's really these like 2 stars that are locked in each other's gravity, and they orbit so close to one another that they're like sort of indistinguishable from being one star. So, yeah, so this binary star software that we are like designing right now will basically give you the opportunity to kind of like come in with your NFTs. You'll be able to like verify your wallet. You'll be able to, almost have like Discord style permissions for the IP rights. If you're like, oh yeah, I want my wizard to be able to be licensed to to be created merchandise, to be the theme of a theme park or whatever. You don't have to be a lawyer and have to understand super detailed like rights. We'll basically abstract that away for you. And then I think on the execution side, we'll try to put together like everything from art commissions to like, let's say that we vetted people for creating stuffed animals, which we have. And we want to say, oh, there's a vendor here. If you want to use this person to help design it, this person to help manufacture it, maybe we even go as far as integrating into, fulfillment by Amazon or some of these warehousers. So that way you can like, you have the intellectual property to license something that you have the resources to have contractors and help them make it. You have the resources to be able to like crowdfund to get the minimum order quantities, and then you have the resources for actually like shipping out the merch or selling to a distributor. So it'll take a lot of time for us to do this, but yeah, I think that like we want to kind of formalize this process of what everyone's already doing, because what good are IP rights if nobody actually can commercialize them?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like there's a whole like massive discussion around IP rights across all of Web3 and NFTs, and I just find it so interesting that like IP rights are irrelevant if you don't know how to execute those rights into something that is a business, or even just something that you're passionate about. And so this is to me, this is the kind of tool that can be used like horizontally across the entire space. I mean, we're going to build it for us. But like even like down to like a lot of some stuff that I deal with is like, okay, we're engaging with a manufacturer and we need to do a deal. Like there needs to be like an actual deal, piece of paper, an agreement. And so if we're able to supply like boilerplate agreements for you all to use when connecting with these manufacturers, whether that's an independent person that we vetted over Etsy or it's like a full-on like scaled up operation, this just makes everything, it just reduces all the friction around. And so like we're just hoping it really like amplifies everything that you all are doing.
And I think that like the reason that I think that physical merchandise is so important is like when you look at that Wikipedia page of the highest grossing franchises of all time, right? And it actually breaks out how they make their money, and merch is a massive amount of it. You look at Pokemon, $120 billion in revenue, 90 billion of that is merchandise. You look at Hello Kitty, $88 billion in revenue, it's basically all merch. Star Wars, $70 billion in revenue, 40 billion of Star Wars revenue is from merch. And so that this is one of the reasons why I'm like sort of against CC0, because like I talked about this last week. That merch fee that comes back to to anyone basically goes to zero because nobody has to pay to use your IP for your merch. And so the licensing that we have, right, we want to be able to build collectively, and this isn't like pure speculation on the token, right? This is a key difference between Forgotten Ruins and a lot of these other projects. We're not talking about like, oh, you're going to market your token and then you're going to be able to flip your token to someone else for more. No, we're saying like we're building a world collectively, and when you own a token, you own IP rights in that character. But through your own efforts, you're able to kind of grow that character, create IP collectively, and then we can create merchandise and stories and movies and comics and all those things. So
yeah. A perfect example of it is the Book of Lore, right? Like without the Book of Lore, where do people go to tell stories about their characters? They don't. It's like disparate, and lore probably wouldn't be a thing. Maybe the word lore wouldn't be used so frequently by the space in general if the Book of Lore hadn't been made. So I think it's the same concept. It's it just allows people to more easily create. And I just think it's such a huge idea to say, oh, I want to make a plushie, I want to make a candle, I want to make a rug, I want to make whatever. And you just go to the site, you verify your wizard, and all of a sudden you have all of the tools at your disposal to do what you need, and maybe there's a button in there to like submit to the DAO after the fact. If you can't afford to maybe there's a fundraising mechanism built into this. But yeah, it's a long timeline, relatively long timeline.
It's sort of like LegalZoom meets like Fiverr meets Etsy.
Yeah, exactly.
More global. You had your hand raised, please.
Yes, sorry. So when we're in regards to that, first off, real quick, we just finished the voting. Just ended. I posted the winners for the Wizards and Waifu contest. But in regards to that, it's kind of on topic because part of what we're doing for all the winners or everybody that participated is being able to create an individual shirt. They have their everybody that submitted art for it will have the option of putting their art on a shirt for themselves to keep, or choose one of the wizards or one of the ones we come up with. And part of that is we've kind of hooked up with a good vendor that allows us to do one-offs if somebody wanted to put their wizard on a shirt. And that's something that we're open to, I would say, for other wizards and stuff in the future, just because we've made that connection. And once we finish setting everything up with them, I've already, had the conference calls and everything, and it's something easy once we have the right files and stuff like that for it.
Yeah, and by the way,
Cool.
this is the kind of thing where like you've done that work. Well, now that work, like you said, can be put into this if you want, so that other people can take advantage of it.
Absolutely, and
great.
you've seen some of the different things we've posted online, from the fanny packs to other stuff like that. Which I also say we are putting something in Dad's boxes. I'm not going to
Ooh.
but everybody will be receiving some more on global stuff as well. But yeah, we're throwing around a bunch of different ideas just besides T-shirts as well. There's a whole line of merchandise once we get it up and going.
Fun.
That's awesome.
And that's great. Yeah. So I posted the Wizards and Waifus contest results as a pinned tweet. So congrats to Tanya Del Rio and Code Nino. Nino? I don't know. Yeah, it's a really fun contest.
And that second one, Codino, that's been around for a long time.
Yes,
that's a design that's like, I feel like 6 months ago I saw that.
Nino actually said that because he felt his was a commission piece and wasn't worthy. The next two, which was a tie for third, was Oz and Feckless. So both of them will be going on in place of Nino.
Ah, interesting.
Cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Cool.
Now that we're sort of like, we're just, I think it's tangential, but relevant. I think something that we'll be putting out more information about, but like this idea of merchandising, right? And I think there's two sides of it, just like with the TV show and the comic, right? I think Magic Machine is helping sort of lead the charge in terms of canon, and the cult is coming in next to us and help filling in all the spaces. I think the same goes with merchandising. All the things that we're talking about are so amazing. And then, of course, there's sort of Magic Machine initiatives. And so we actually recently signed with an incredible licensing agent who is doing wonders for us in a bunch of different categories. I won't mention their name. We'll like have some kind of like press release or something. But it's I got to tell you, like the amount of things that are going on underneath the surface is, I just can't even keep my head straight. I just jump from like call to call to call. But there is so much cooking, and I just can't wait for everybody to see everything that we're doing. It's like, I know that like some people, it's a little bit quieter out in the space right now, and for us, it's just like it allows us to like concentrate on all these different initiatives. But there's just so many incredible projects that are like going on behind the scenes. Not to be vague, but it's just really exciting. I'm like so stoked. So now we have someone who represents some of the biggest IP in the world representing us, and like opening up doors that I never thought possible. So I think you guys are going to like really enjoy seeing the fruits of that labor.
Hi, Matto, you have your hand up.
Yes. Related to the topic of merch, just really quick, I want to say that tomorrow in the Runiverse Discord, we will be hosting a trivia event where winners who have over 8 correct answers will be entered into a pool where they can win free merch. So we have the Ground Rune shirts. So if you want some extra shirts, or if you didn't get any shirts, you can join in that trivia tomorrow. You have 24 hours to answer, so it's not really a rush as long as you have time tomorrow to answer in. And then just circling back onto the topic on hand, like I think I think it's awesome that I think like when a lot of people who don't really understand the potential of NFTs, I think and like the ownership that comes with it, I think it'll be a really aha moment when, like, let's say the Forgotten Runes show ends up airing, and then some kid ends up really liking it, and then he goes to like his like local Hot Topic or whatever, gets a Forgotten Runes shirt, and then he looks online and sees like more on Capital shirts or whatever, and it's like that's like completely off, but then he recognizes that it's not technically like a fan shirt or anything. Like they have the license to actually make that shirt. Like, and then it will be like an aha moment. Like, oh, so you can actually get the license to like produce stuff for this project, and like pretty much like, adjacent official stuff. Like, I feel like that would be a really like light bulb moment that a lot of people, because there's so much misconceptions about like what's going on, like what this is. There's a lot of people who still just assume like, it's just literally just JPEGs that like it's a link to some centralized server or whatever. That's cool and all, but like when they see it actually like in works, and they see like the potential that you're able to actually grow a big brand and then have these sub ownerships of that brand where you're able to do what you want, like divorced from what the main the main IP is doing. I think that's great. I think that a lot of people it's gonna really start turning the wheel when we start seeing that develop.
So amazing. It's so, honestly, the way you phrase it is even a light bulb moment for me, to be honest. And I think like as we grow too, we're trying to figure out the right way that we talk about like Magic Machine, from the Magic Machine initiatives, making sure the revenue and profits are dealt with integrity, in terms of like that the community benefits in an appropriate way that is like both regulatorily compliant, and so and like good for everyone as an individual. So we're still figuring out those details, getting closer by the day. I have to like talk to our lawyers before I can like say the specifics, but that's basically part of the binary star effort as well, which is like, if there's money if $1 million comes in from the TV show, some of like that needs to be shared with the community. That doesn't just go straight to Magic Machine, the profits after recouping kind of the costs, So, those are things that we have to kind of work out the details, but that's really all part of this effort. And this idea that you can.
I was just gonna say, you're being pretty humble. I mean, I think we're talking to some of the smartest people in the world when it comes to these types of topics and how you navigate it. And some of the smartest people in the space are like, wow, we didn't think of that, and this actually works. So, again, it's tough to throw stuff out there without being super specific, but this stuff just takes a while. And also, to what you were saying, Matt, Dotta and I were just talking about this yesterday. Like, I think there's going to be this point, you can call it a J curve or some kind of inflection point, where a lot of the seeds that we're planting right now, I think there's going to be this moment where it all crystallizes and just really takes off and plays in a way that people actually understand what we're doing. So I think we may, in a lot of ways, like we're kind of like 12 to 24 months ahead in a lot of ways, and it takes time for these things to gestate.
Exactly. Like we might, the community might just come in selling 200 units or whatever it was, 80 units of the treasure trove box today. But this idea, but like, what about, like, I think this is why we focus so much on the TV show, right? We've talked to a lot of people, a lot of Web3 people or like Web3 investors, and they'll just kind of be like, they don't quite get at first why we focus on the TV show. They're like, oh, are you guys just trying to be a media company? You see people tell us this on Twitter all the time. They're like, you guys are just a Web2 company in Web3 clothes.
Oh my God, it drives me crazy.
I want to be like, no, I am Web3. Whatever I make defines Web3. Like what we are doing is completely Web3, because we're saying like, what is a bigger billboard for the tokens than like a television show that like anyone can watch. And so that turns this merch from being like, oh, we're like giving away quantum style shirts to just the cult just to get the ideas out there, into being like a revenue center. Because you walk past that shirt in Hot Topic, you're like, it's not just like, oh, this is a cool shirt. Is that a band? You're like, oh, Forgotten Runes, I love that show. I have to have this shirt.
It's all, there's only a handful of ways to like create a global brand. And two of the best ways to do that are video games and television and film. And we're doing both of them. And so it'll be interesting, like I said, it's like kind of quiet and it's kind of weird in the market. but it's great because we have plenty of runway to do what we need to do. We have amazing partners, and there's going to be this moment, and everybody on this call and everybody who's like been with us since the beginning and jump in between then and now. I think everybody, it's all just going to crystallize. And so
the two ways to build a huge brand, like you said, is like video games and television shows or film. Yeah. And once both of those catch on, like you said, Matto, like people will realize that they can then, like you can sort of like latch on to this brand. You can use this brand and then you can create something fresh, and then people recognize the brand, but they also recognize how fresh it is. And then you can merchandise on that. It's just like going to be a virtuous cycle.
Yeah, like I want someone to be able to watch the show or play the game and be like, I love that character. I'm going to buy that character. It's like watching an Iron Man movie or watching Avengers and being like, I really love Iron Man. I'm going to buy Iron Man.
Right.
Like, holy crap. If that isn't like revolutionary, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, like imagine like all these like fan fictions that you see, like people obviously love series and then they write their fan fictions. Like, what if you had the opportunity to like legitimately buy the character that you want to make that fan fiction for, and actually push that as like their story, whatever your fan fiction is. So like you love the character, you have a scenario that you have in your mind that you want for them, and then it's like you can own them. You can push that scenario if you want. You can put that character in your hands and make that story work.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
And when you write that story, you're not writing in a vacuum, right? You're not starting from zero to create the world and the fan base. You're like built into an existing fan base anyway. So we've got Heroes of Cumberland up here. Hello. Do you want to talk about our drop and then talk about some content going out?
Sure. Yeah. So we are pretty much moments away from opening Mint. The website is all up. We've got Bill Gaines working behind the scenes to make sure it's all running smoothly. If y'all want to go check out cucumdog.com right now, Mint's not open yet, but you can check out the site.
I'm so excited.
I am so stoked.
Right now.
Locke's laughing at me IRL right now because I'm actually so excited.
You got the .com? That is serious.
Yeah, we're serious around here. We don't play games with our Cucum dogs.
I guess.
Oh man, are you kidding me with this tower? The Cucum Tower?
Wow.
No. Oh my god.
Yeah. So
that's amazing.
Wanted to make sure the minting site was, fully kind of lore driven and tells more about the project than just a button where you say mint. So we got that running now. The announcement I made a couple days ago about I announced that mint price would be 0.05 ETH. We've since lowered it to 0.0333 to allow more cult members to get some delicious Cucum dogs in their hands.
Yum.
And yeah, I'm just super excited to get all these characters into people's hands. I've got custom naming schemes. They all have these individual names, just like the Warriors and Wizards do. And yeah, as far as other things go, we're still working out kinks for the free lore mint. So anyone who's written lore for a wizard or a warrior or a soul or whatever will be able to get a free mint of a Heroes of Cumberland, in addition to however many else you want. And that is the details there. But I'm super excited for the future of Heroes of Cumberland. It's been spoken of that Cumberland shall exist in the Runeverse, apparently somewhere in Brown Wizard Delta. So I've got plans to buy a whole bunch of Runeverse land and build Cumberland there, with some hopefully mini games and fun stuff with that. But yeah, I'm just super excited to be able to add on to the already amazing ecosystem of Forgotten Runes. I love this project so much. I like creating worlds and characters for people to play in has been my obsession for basically ever. I play lots of D&D, love running games with custom settings. So this is kind of just an expansion on that, and I want to help people write ridiculous stories.
Amazing.
Oh, incredible.
Amazing. Well, I will look forward to minting as soon as it is live. That is really great. I've just loved all the previews of the characters that you've shown on Twitter, and I'm glad that Elf isn't here, so that way nobody gets yelled at. And this is going to be a fun mint. I want to do a couple of cult content shout outs as we go out. So one, if you look along the pinned tweets up top, I'm going to start all the way at the right to the oldest one. So why Sam posted a GIF of how kobolds were born. In his vision, they are hatched from eggs. That is controversial. We'll have to take a new poll. Hen Boyd has his chalk drawing of Hadrian of the Hills. We've got a super amazing commission from D20.Eth showing his characters at the this isn't the Shroom Shack. This is the Impy Shake. So at the Impy Shake, which is apparently the latest food joint in the Runiverse, we have got Retired Yield Farmer, of course, sharing some incredible art. Oh, also on merch, Sammy Kitty and Baron Von Fancy did the
Zippo.
The Zippo, yeah, the Sacred Flame Zippo. Amazing. I need like a Sacred Flame blowtorch, but I'll start with the Zippo. I don't have a Zippo and I need to get one.
I'm working on the blowtorch.
Okay, good. Yeah, a flamethrower. SPZ did a poster bot where you can type in your wizard number and get a whole poster out of it. It's really amazing. We're working also trying to figure out how to make it easier to get a printed version of that, because a lot of people have asked for that. They want to get a high quality printed version. We're going to help SPZ figure that out. And Juan Snow has did a piece from Tanya Del Rio created a piece for Juan Snow of his souls, and it is just epic. It has got a host of ghouls and the Grim Reaper, and it's just really incredible. And then also this summer there is a kids summer art contest, which I think is being run by Artist Rock, or I'm sure she can tell you. So, well, I think that's pretty much all we've got for today, Bear. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
No, I think we covered a lot. I'm glad we spent time on what everybody's building.
As did I. All right. Well, this has been Dotta and Bear and Matazuki and Brennan, Heroes of Cumberland, Morin of the North, Dr. Poplovsky, signing off from the Quantum Downs. Good night, everybody.